Baltimore Ravens 23, Jacksonville Jaguars 7. Ravens moved to 11-3. Sole possession of the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. Again, they control their own destiny, but they have to play the Niners and the Dolphins and the Bengals, I believe, in the last 3 weeks. Not an easy schedule here for the Ravens. Jags fall to 8-6, one of the trio of teams sitting up top the AFC South. Biggest news coming out of this game, though, a couple things. Keaton Mitchell.
Horrible injury.
Injured. He's out for the season. He was in the middle of a 8 yards per carry game and blew out his knee.
Dude, I don't remember an injury like that. He hyperextended it. He did one of those things where he sort of tripped up slightly, and you kind of do that. You're falling forward. You're trying to keep your own balance. And he just stuck out a leg in the course of sort of slightly falling forward, and it hyperextended and just shredded itself.
Yeah.
It was horrible looking.
And then after the game, Trevor Lawrence, it was announced by Doug Peterson that Trevor Lawrence has been added to the concussion protocol. Don't know when that would have happened during the game, but the Jags have to come back, and they play the Bucs next week, and now we're watching Trevor Lawrence to see if he can get out of concussion protocol within a week here. But the Ravens win 23-7 and did a really nice job defensively. Uneven game for Trevor Lawrence. Lamar Jackson with some spectacular plays, and he finishes with 97 yards on 12 carries. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on the football game?
So this was a lot of Jacksonville shooting themselves repeatedly in the foot. I think NBC flashed up a graphic at halftime that this was the most yardage any team had this season whilst not scoring in the first half. They had 180 yards or something in the first half.
Feels right.
And somehow conspired not to score, whether it was turning the ball over or whether it was that weird halftime sequence.
4 big errors.
Yeah.
That we should highlight, right?
Go.
So 2 missed field goals. You have Trevor Lawrence just straight fumbling the ball, not forced, just dropping it.
Just lost the ball in the middle of running.
The worst part about that play, it was 3rd and long.
Yeah.
And whether he picked up 2 yards or 7 yards, they were kicking a field goal, no matter what. It was 3rd and 10 plus, I believe.
A guaranteed 3-point mistake.
3-point, right. So they're going to kick another field goal. It was the closest field goal they would have attempted in that half. 3-point mistake. He drops the ball while scrambling. And then the last one was with under a minute left, complete a big pass at about the 4 or 5 yard line. They have no timeouts left. They get tackled in bounds. They run up to the line. They have about 5 or 6 seconds left. They run up to the line. Tirico's yelling, they're going to spike it. They're going to spike it. They actually get into the gun and throw a pass. And they throw a quick pass to the flat. Parker Washington catches it, gets tackled inbounds. Time runs out in the half. Mm-hmm. They had more than 7 seconds, right? They had enough time to even, tease getting back to the line, but we knew that they were out of time. So they get 0 points there. That was a disaster.
There were 11 seconds on the clock when that play went on.
11 seconds, right? So you have 0 chance if you get tackled in bounds, but you have a chance to throw at least
2
one.
passes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should throw 2 passes to the end zone.
Because it's first down. So you've got at least 2 shots at the end zone.
So they could have spiked it, taken 2 shots at the end zone, or even if they were going to run a play, when they snap it, which is fine. I don't mind the hurry up and snap it, but you have to throw that ball into the end zone.
Yeah.
You can't throw it short.
Or at the very minimum, something you guarantee is going out of bounds.
And a lot of times, I think in that hurry up situation, I think you see quarterbacks do this sometimes. They'll run up, they snap the ball, and then they'll just overthrow it out of bounds. And you waste an extra couple seconds versus the spike, but you're taking the chance that maybe the defense doesn't align quickly and you steal a touchdown.
Right. You have, the hurry-up nature of that play does theoretically play to your advantage, particularly if you've already sort of said, which you have, this is the play we're running if we get this. You know what I mean? They have that preset, whereas the defense doesn't know what's going on. So there is an element of surprise that works in your favor, but you can't do what they did. The one thing you can't do is what they did. The short inbounds that doesn't get out.
It was really bad. Jags' only touchdown was Jamal Agnew getting behind the defense for a 65-yard touchdown. That did make it 10-7 in the third quarter. Makes it seem like, hey, there's a game here. But look, the Ravens have been, Lamar Jackson, it is fascinating because when they need plays, and this is what Chris kept highlighting last night, they couldn't sack him. He throws it up, gets it to Isaiah Likely. That set up a touchdown. Really nice pass to Isaiah Likely up the seam for a 16-yard touchdown. When they needed big plays, Lamar was there. But also when they're trying to hold on to a lead, and I know they've had some of the most egregious blown leads in the NFL over the last 2 years. But Lamar's ability to just run the ball and just pick up plays that most quarterbacks can't, whether it's on keepers or QB power or counter or whatever they're running. The creativity of the Ravens run game and the difficulty in stopping them, that's where every time the Jags got a little bit closer, the Ravens would run some clock. And I thought the Ravens also left a lot of opportunities. Like, they did a good job of moving the ball, and then they stall out. So they could have put up a lot more points as well. But they did a really nice job of at least handling the comeback by the Jags in this game.
I think there's a lot of value as well to a quarterback, even if they don't do it as a default, being able to scramble, So even when you are going to call a pass, if the pass isn't on, instead of a negative play happening, Lamar is able to turn that into something useful, right? And even if it's not scramble around behind the line of scrimmage and then find a pass, just simply being able to keep the clock moving, keep ahead of the chains, keep the drive alive by scrambling and not, this didn't work, it's an incomplete pass, That or a sack, is something worse. And this isn't obviously just a Lamar Jackson specific thing, but any quarterback that's athletic and mobile enough to be able to scramble and make positive yardage, I think becomes incredibly valuable in terms of protecting a lead, because those guys can do things that other quarterbacks can't, and they don't need to be as efficient in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, you're stealing yards, man. And I thought that was a huge part of this game for the Ravens. Trevor Lawrence on the other side, really, I think I mentioned it on the preview show, how he had that game a couple weeks ago where it felt like difficulty level was high. And Stafford had this game against the Ravens where there were so many tight window throws and Stafford hit them. Lawrence, there was a lot of tight window throws that they had to make. Everything was difficult because this Ravens defense generally makes life difficult. And Lawrence missed a bunch of them. There was a point where it looked like he was shaking his arm out. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. Lawrence might be dealing with 4 different injuries right now. Honestly, he's got a groin since week 7 or 8. He's got the high ankle sprain, which is a 3 to 4 week injury. We're in week 2 of that. He's now in concussion protocol. And whatever was happening with his arm, he threw like 3 straight passes straight into the turf. Remember that happened to Josh Allen last year? He had something happen with his arm against the Jets last year where Allen just could not throw the ball. And he kind of worked through it, shook it off. And
well, didn't he have a UCL sprain, right?
Yeah, and then he made it worse like in that game or whatever it was.
He sprained the ligament that Brock Purdy snapped like a banjo string.
Right, the Tommy John surgery versus just a sprain. I'm an elbow sprain survivor, so it's not easy to throw through.
No?
No.
Is that why you top out at 75 now?
Oh, no, that's just age and poor conditioning.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But that's why I didn't make it out of AAA. I think I was on my way to the big leagues.
And then the elbow.
In 2008. Got called up in June to AAA. On my way. The Giants were calling everybody up that year, man. They were calling everybody up. In my second outing, boom, sprain.
I mean,
tried to pitch through it.
You'd already be in the Hall of Fame, but for that. Not the baseball.
Yeah, if I just made it to San Francisco.
The Italian-American national sports, whatever the hell it is.
If I made it to the big leagues, my line would be something like 5 innings, 9 ERA, 8-9 hits. But I would have been, in the bigs.
None of that means anything to me, but cool.
It would have been bad.
Gotcha.
It would have been bad, but I would have at least made it because of the elbow sprain. So yeah, Lawrence is dealing with all sorts of stuff. But yeah, they needed him to play better in this game. That's my take.
No, I mean, it's a legitimate one. I think it's true.
It also makes the Trevor Lawrence experience more confusing. I know he's battling all those injuries that I mentioned, but every time the Jags play one of those games, I'm saying, okay, are they ready to get up to the elite level? And now the question is, can they even survive the Colts and the Texans now in the AFC South, especially if Lawrence is in concussion protocol, if he can't play this week with C.J. Beathard. Jags peaked at the end of the season last year. It's kind of going the other way this year.
Yeah, I mean, the shooting themselves in the foot thing was a big problem. They just put themselves too far behind in this game and weren't able to come back to any great degree. The other thing, on the broadcast, Chris was sort of saying, if I could wish them any boost, what would I give them? And he essentially wanted to give them some more oomph up front on the offensive line so that they could run the ball better, so they could do things like that. I think, honestly, both trenches, if they could be boosted in both trenches, that's their weakness at the moment. Josh Allen had a great game on the defensive line, which he has pretty much all season. I know he didn't have a sack, but he had 8 total pressures. Ronnie Stanley is hurt and just not playing the way Ronnie Stanley generally does. They were down both tackles at one point, the Ravens offensive line, so you'd expect Josh Allen to have a pretty good game. Trayvon Walker's okay. Like, he's making more plays now than he did before, but it's still not enough, and they don't really have any major interior pass rush presence. So they're a little bit like the Lions, actually. I've said this all season long. The Lions and the Jags are basically the same team in different conferences, but they're still just too reliant on one guy up front for pass rush, for general defensive line disruption. It's Josh Allen, and if he's not able to individually take over the game, they're probably not going to do enough to really impact the opposition. So you would want some more on that side of the ball for them on the defensive line. And I think he's right. On the offensive line, they're just not good enough yet. They've been banged up. They're, forced into the bench a bit, and they've got 3 guys in this game that are going to grade like in the 40s or the 50s, giving up a ton of pressure. And it's not as good in the run game either. So they are weak in both trenches, which is potentially enough to set them way behind in the AFC.
All right, man. Baltimore Ravens, man. They're 11-3. We got Christmas night going on against the 49ers. The last game of next weekend is Monday night, Christmas night, 8:15, Ravens 49ers, potential Super Bowl preview. We're getting some of these games late here. Some of these killer matchups here. In the Ravens' final schedule, and this is why I said Kansas City, if you're a Chiefs fan, you might have a path to the number 1 overall seed. The Ravens would have to lose twice. But they play the Niners, the Dolphins, and then the Steelers. Who the heck knows? They already lost to the Steelers because they dropped 7 passes or whatever happened, blocked punts and the whole thing. So Baltimore, they've won 4 straight. They've won 8 out of 9, playing well. They've got different ways to win. They've been leading in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter in every game this year, Baltimore, and they've lost 3 of them somehow. But they got the Niners, Dolphins, and the Steelers. So it's a tough run here, but the Ravens control their own destiny for that number 1 seed. And I'll tell you what, I think that's important come playoff time. If you're trying to beat the Chiefs, Bills.
The bye is huge, right?
That's huge.
Yeah, the bye is huge. Even if I'm kind of the opinion that generally this year seeding doesn't really matter in terms of outside of the 49ers. I'm not sure there's an elite team in the league, the entire league, the AFC, the NFC, all of it.
That's fair.
But so from that point of view, like Buffalo, right? They're not even in the playoff seeding right now, and yet a game like that, they've just shown they can beat pretty much any team in the NFL and beat them handily. So does it matter if Buffalo makes it as the 7 seed or the 2 seed? No. Either way, it's the same. The only difference is that bye week, right? In a playoff year that I think is probably going to be chaotic because all these teams are fairly evenly mixed, not having to expose yourself to that one loss is huge. We just get to sit back and chill and watch madness unfold on Wild Card Weekend while upsets happen and all sorts of stuff go crazy.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, there's a lot of the teams that have number 1 seed aspirations have huge games, including both the 49ers and the Ravens next week. So, should be great.